Singularity by William Sleator, 19. The last 6 months were very different from the first, and not just because they went by so much more quickly. When I checked the reflection, the day after Saturnalia, the mouth had grown so large that the teeth filled the sink. It was already easily big enough to bite off a human head, and it would be bigger still when it came through. As before, only the mouth and teeth were visible, but the details were a lot more distinct. I could see a kind of crease on either side where the top and bottom jaws met, like the line between the two blades of a scissors. There was a round pimple or nodule where the crease ended. It made me think of a hinge. Inside the mouth, behind the rows of teeth, the throat seemed to be made up of interlocking cylinders, as though the head were telescoping toward me. To distract myself, I checked on my progress. I was nearly an inch taller than I had been when I measured my height 3 months ago, when I got out. I might be as much as 2 inches taller than Barry. I had already noticed that my clothes were getting to be much too short, though not too tight. My hair, unbraided, fell to my shoulders. It seemed several shades darker than the sample I had saved, closer to brown than to blonde. My beard hairs from the razor were a good deal darker than that, and one day's worth filled 3/4 of a teaspoon instead of barely a half. I couldn't see my face, but my body had changed. Of course, I was thinner. The softness around my belly was gone, and I could count my ribs, but I wasn't undernourished. Not only was I taller, but there were muscles on me that had never been there before. By now, I was doing 50 push-ups and 120 sit-ups, running for what seemed like an hour. For the first few days after my second holiday, I worried about my peculiar behavior out on the road. Why hadn't I warned the cop? Was it just because I wanted to keep growing for the full year? Or had the creature, or some power from the Singularity, influenced me to forget? I had been living within its force field now for 6 months. Had it altered my brain somehow? I plunged back into my routine, which was, I knew, something completely my own. It was like a home I was constructing with painstaking care, and every day I worked on it. It became stronger, more impregnable. I was the third little pig, the smart one in his house of bricks. All problems lay in wait, like the wolf just outside. The routine would make them harmless. By providing a foundation, an identity that gave me control, as the days passed, I didn't stop wondering about things that seemed unanswerable. I just worried about them less. I was jogging in place one evening. The date was 3/20/08, according to my diary, and thinking about an incident in a book I had read. I tried to place it exactly, since it was part of my routine to be specific about my reading. It must have been a mystery, because it was about a very clever crime. A barely avoided auto accident caused by fast-growing corn completely hiding an intersection from on a highway. Could the name of the book have been Ears? I was about to giggle. Then I placed the incident and choked. My heart rate would have been speeding up if it hadn't already been elevated from running. I stumbled. I started to sit down. No! That would be a mistake. I began running again harder than ever. But then I felt shocked, because it hadn't been an incident in a book. It was something that had happened to Barry and me and the lawyer in a nearby cornfield. Or in another world. When the full hour was up, and not before, I sat down to meditate. I concentrated on what had just happened. And it wasn't fanciful at all to see the cornfield incident as an event in another world. It really was another world out there. It was the Earth with its fixed time stream, and I wasn't in it anymore. Part of me wanted to cut off that train of thought immediately, but another part, the part that was supported by the foundation I was building, refused to hide from it. I wasn't part of the Earth here, nor was I part of the other universe, though I was close to it. Then where was I? I was between two universes. I was in the singularity that connected them. Barry was still back in that other world. I had left him permanently behind. A part of me had been cut away, like an amputated limb. I was isolated as I had never been before. I was totally alone. No, not alone. There was one other entity that shared this fantastic and paradoxical perch with me, my only companion, and I was closer to it than I was to Barry now. I got up and ran water into the sink. 3/23/19. I don't meditate much these days. Instead, I stand at the sink and watch the approaching one. It is in one universe, I'm in another. Between and around us lies the time-bending interface, where the two universes meet. The awesome singularity, The approaching one hovers in the eternal instant of the event horizon, while I rocket through time. We are bonded together as if the singularity were a kind of womb that encloses us. Every instant we grow closer, I stare at the shiny cones of its teeth, each ending in a pinpoint of light. Are they teeth, or are they eyes? Or are they some organ or mechanism unknown to me? Is there a head? Is there even a brain behind the mouth? Or is there only a mouth on a telescoping gullet? I study it for signs of sentience, for an indication of life, a flicker of communication. Today, I looked back at the entry for 2:42:31, when I imagined what the world outside looked like from Playhouse time, and then I couldn't help thinking what it looks like from the point of view of the event horizon and the approaching one, to be frozen while the rest of the universe accelerates. Bats shoot over the meadow, humming like bullets. The river is a blur, a streak of white fire. The stars roll. The moon plummets into the trees. The sun shoots up and whirls across the sky, even faster until night and day blink on and off like a shutter, a flickering old movie, and then become too quick for the eye, an unchanging bluish gray. Leaves vanish from the trees. There is a bright flash of snow. An explosion of green sweeps across the world and is gone again, until the seasons themselves are a permanent pale green mist. Trees break from the earth and grow branches, wriggling skyward like worms. A vast ocean rises and then evaporates in a puff of steam. The sun swells and hungrily devours the black cinder of the earth. And through all the violent activity, the approaching one in the event horizon remains calm and unchanged. 3:40:01. For days at a time, I forget entirely about the other world. I read about it, but I'm reading about a fantasy. I read about it, but I'm reading about a fantasy world. When I do remember that I had a life there, I'm startled. It seems so frantic and busy, flooded with pain. It's a relief to be here now. The feeling is like long ago when I would wake up from a nightmare, it would slowly dawn on me that the terror had only been a dream, and everything was all right in reality. That's how I feel when I think about the other world. I didn't go out on the third holiday. It wasn't because I lost track of time. On 3:49:30, I just didn't feel like going out. It seemed as though it would be an interruption, but I was aware that not going out would change my growth schedule, so that I would now be a year older on 4/26/00. 3:53:13. It seems absurd to me now that I skipped my third holiday. Why did I do that? And my diary entries from that period sound a little absurd as well, so philosophical, as though they were written by someone else. Maybe I was going through some sort of phase, a growth stage, but not one of those awful-sounding ones like oral or anal that psychiatrists write about, as though they were describing the multiplication tables. It was my own phase, unique to me, and I'm coming out of it now. Maybe it was a brainwave or force field from the approaching one. Maybe it did something to me, changed me. Should I be scared? I'm not. It happened. Why bother worrying about something that you can't change? I know people told me that for years back out there, but that's the kind of thing you don't really believe until you see it for yourself. The funny thing is, I know logically I could take a holiday any time I wanted now, but I don't, because I feel like I gave up my chance, and now I just have to wait until the end. 3:54:01. Today I was thinking about Barry a lot, which is unusual for me now. I suppose once I used to. No, stop it, that's phony. You don't suppose anything. You know you used to worry about him all the time, but that state of mind is so distant, so hard to identify with. I can only see things from where I am now, and from here, Barry doesn't matter at all. 4:01:49. Everything is changing faster and faster, as though suddenly my mind is catching up with my body. Was it only a few weeks ago I wrote the entry about Barry not mattering? What made me think I was so superior to the person who was Barry's twin? What made me assume I would be immune to Barry's dominance, or that I could ever stop caring about him and what he thinks of me? But it was good to look at that entry again, because it made me realize I'm going to have to be careful when I do go back out there, careful not to think I know everything. Will I really be ready to leave here in only 2 months? 4 12:13. Look at the assumptions I made once about the approaching one. Because of a distorted reflection of its outward appearance, I was convinced it was monstrous, a destroyer, an invader. Barry was a lot more open-minded about it than I was now, now that I think about it, and I just assumed it was bravado on Barry's part. Now as the approaching one nears the surface, I feel more of a bond with it than ever. But it's rational, not dreamy and romantic. Think of the sacrifice it is making. Leaving its own universe behind forever, leaving its race behind, plunging alone into an unknown universe. I don't think evil creatures ever make sacrifices like that. At least I assume that's true. But I can't make assumptions. I remember what I read last month about baby animals imprinting, and those experiments with baby chimpanzees. An infant animal separated from its mother will start following the first thing that comes along, thinking that is its mother. In Africa, baby zebras have become passionately attached to jeeps, and in the experiments, the baby chimpanzees clung to their artificial wire mothers as though there were some comfort there, and later became psychotic. Am I, separated from Barry, clinging in the same way to the approaching one? 4:12:37. I woke up terrified today. It was awful, the loss of control. I haven't felt that way for so long. I forgot what it was like. It had nothing to do with Barry. I think it was what I wrote yesterday about animals imprinting on mannequins and machines. What makes me think the approaching one is not just a machine? It could be a robot programmed to make this journey. Or in that case, it is sacrificing nothing. Its purpose could very well be evil. Am I deluding myself about it out of loneliness? Later. But I'm not lonely. I'm peaceful and even happy here. And when I stand and watch the approaching one, I'm not scared. I think what really terrified me was something else, leaving here and going back to that other world. 4:21:32. What I feel must be like stage fright. I've never been a performer because I am terrified of being exposed in front of a crowd. I always have been. What's new is the other side, the anticipation of stepping out on stage. It wouldn't be thrilling if it wasn't chancy, if there wasn't something to be afraid of. That's how Barry must have felt all along. No wonder I disgusted him. I was constantly trying to drag him back, to cancel the show. 4:23:36. Less than a week. What would happen if I didn't go out? How soon would anybody, meaning Barry, notice? Probably not before 7 his time. That would be more than another year for me. What would happen in that year? Who would I be then? Peaceful as it is, do I want to stay that much longer? And what about the approaching one? Will it have come through by then? What would it be like to be in here with it when it does come through? 4:25:12. I look slowly over the different books, remembering what's in them, who I was and what I was feeling when I read them. It's something like saying goodbye to people I've met on a long ocean voyage, a cruise around the world. I've read about the experience, getting close to people and knowing you'll never see them again, but this is different because the books will always be there whenever I want them. I'm the one who will be gone because I'll be somebody else. 4:25:36. Tomorrow I'll be a year older. I'm supposed to go out and I'm scared because suddenly I know what going out will mean. It will be like pulling a fire alarm or like lighting a fuse. Why didn't I see that until now? By stepping out that door, I will be setting free the approaching one. If I stay inside, it will be at least a year for me, perhaps several years before it comes through, but out there it will only be a matter of hours. Why am I smiling? I once knew someone who used to smile when he was afraid. It baffled me then. Now I'm doing it. Who was that? 4:26:00. It was Barry, of course. I'm still smiling as I write this. I'm tingling all over at the same time I feel calm as the approaching one is calm. I remember so many bad things, how imprisoned I was out there, how vulnerable, how powerless, how easy to put it off, to delay seeing Barry in the world, to delay the arrival of the approaching one. The keys lie behind the notebook on the metal tabletop. I make my hand ready for them, grasp them, I stand up, still writing. I'm going out now. And that is the end of chapter 19.